let's take credentialing as the first topic. You know, if you were at the general session yesterday, that credentialing is not the same as licensing. You know that there's a lot, you may know, and if you stop and think about it, I'm sure you would have ideas about what specific competencies of a lighting designer, what skills should be part of a credentialing process or recognized through a credentialing process. And you also probably know that the IALD is at the very earliest stages of exploring how best to do this. The IALD board has met with a credentialing expert and is probably going to form a task force to deal with this issue. And your thoughts about credentialing and what its risks and rewards and payoffs could be would be extremely helpful.
Our table, I think, as a whole, felt that there is a need for some level of credentialing that indicates core competencies in all the areas of design that we work on, but that the bar needs to be set relatively high so that we don't end up with another LC.
There's a concern about encroachment by other credentialed organizations, which has been the concern about the LC in the past. There is a real concern about legal implications. Any of you who are architects or interior designers, you know the standard of care went up tremendously after licensing became a reality. There's a question about the IALD's willingness to accept responsibility. You know, have we historically been an organization who wanted to do design but didn't want to be responsible for the actions of our design? I think that was mentioned.
The focus is at the center table, not in the middle, was that if this is going to happen, and clearly from the actions of my state, it has a great propensity for it, is do we step in and try to be preemptive so that we can help measure it. Control may sound like a strong word, but do we have a hunt in it, or do we wind up with it happening, 50 times around us, in which every state may have new things, all potentially building on others. So, the issues, I think, are very complex, but the fact that we're challenged with that likely to happen, and I think there's still a jury out on whether this is going to raise its head again in the 2011 in Texas. I think there's going to be a very high degree of likelihood somebody's going to be shopping that bill, or a bill similar to that. And so having something at the table is, I think, a very important thing. Maybe we could walk in and go, okay, this is what we have, and have legislators point to something that's been structured by lighting professionals, as opposed to, a guy from Waco.
The conversation at our table is centered around the diversity that's present in the lighting design community and how that's a strength we have. If you're designing a credentialing or a licensing system for that, we talked about how an information-based system of credentialing, kind of per the LC, where it would be testing, based on a packet of information or information that you needed to know, that kind of solution could be potentially limiting or discouraging to people from kind of more diverse, different fields than lighting design. So we've talked about how a credentialing system should be experientially based. We talked about how the IALD professional membership is a version of that. Maybe it needs some tweaks or needs some more attention, but we thought that an experiential based credentialing was the right way to go.
Yeah, no, I wanted to bring up a point up that was discussed in addition to what was, everyone brought up, which those same issues came up. But one was that in coming up with credentialing, what happens to independent lighting designer? Because obviously when you can't restrict your credentialing to independent people, it basically, how does the IALD react to a much larger playing field of people with the same credential calling themselves lighting designers?
So what is the interplay between your business model of independence and the prospect of any kind of credentialing? Jim, you're next after Kevin.
Kevin?
Can you?
I'm not loud enough. It was just that whatever credentialing system that we end up with we have to remember we're an international organisation, and it has to be able to go.
The last comment I'd like to add is, learn from history. Interior design is a very, very close parallel to the things that we have to follow in the concepts of credentialing. And they're a much larger group of people, and they have had many trials and tribulations due to their challenging relationship with the practice of architecture and the laws of architecture. So all of these need to be considered, but I think our table agreed that we actually could consider being professional IALD as a credential, possibly aided by adding something like the LC as a little bit of technical reinforcement to it.
So there's some ideas on how you get there, and I will mention, I don't think it's a state secret, that as I think actually Marcia mentioned in the general session yesterday, the IALD board has engaged the assistance of a credentialing expert, a person from the International Society for Performance Improvement, who is a specialist in helping organizations figure out credentialing and licensing issues and how to deal with them. And the board has had one session with that person, and the task force of the board will be working more with that person and other experts in the coming months to begin getting into some of the kind of details that Jim's comments brought forward.